So, man, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time today to do this because I know this as we're recording this is like a super busy time of the year for you. I can only imagine.
It is, but I just think anyone who wants to take the time and an interest in what we do, it's an honor. So, although yes, we are very busy, I kind of think if you're going to start an event and it gets a little bit of pull, to try and not make time for people who want to speak to you would be kind of redundant and probably like reverse engineering the entire reason why you started doing it in the first place.
Speaking of that, then, if we go back to the start for a second, how did this all start for you, or how did you get involved in something like this? Because I feel like maybe now in 2024, this seems like I guess, the cool thing to do, and now everybody kind of wants to maybe get into a position like you. But say if we go back, I wouldn't imagine this was always something that was seen as like the quote unquote cool thing to get into.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think it's a cool, I definitely don't do it because it's cool, but I'm glad that anyone might potentially think it's cool. I mean, I'm not in, ugh, I'll try that again. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how cool or uncool it is. I think it's definitely becoming a little more zeitgeisty, based on the fact that the Halloween in the UK is definitely getting bigger. I didn't start it because I thought it was cool. I started because I'm just a massive nerd, and I just thought hopefully there'd be enough people who wanted to do or experience something different as opposed to um, kind of like going to the cinema sort of thing. It's kind of immersive theatre in and of itself. So I am a weird person. So the way that my journey to this came about is that I used to play football or soccer in the United States, and before that, I did drama and film studies. So I did drama and film studies in the UK, but then I ended up coaching and playing soccer in the States. And obviously, Halloween in the States is uber. It's mega. I lived in New Jersey and New York. So I lived in DC for a year, New Jersey, New York for 2 years. Um, and luckily, I ended up like being placed in a fairly affluent community, place called Montclair, New Jersey. And it's not far from Upper Saddle River and things that way, Run DMC and Jay-Z and all them sorts of people live. And their houses are just adorned.
Mm.
Halloween is uber over there. It's like a Halloween lovers heaven slash nightmare heaven, if that can even make any sense. So I always, we in the UK are probably like 10 to 15 years like behind the development of what is on a sociological scale of kind of what we get into when we get into it, dictating the play, if you will. So I always thought that Halloween, I mean, this was 15 years ago. Um, Back when I would imagine, to my recollection, you wouldn't even go trick or treating if you weren't a child. Um, like Halloween pretty much dies with you as a family unless you have like mega people who are just unusually really into it. I would have said, I don't know what your school system was like, but when you got to like 10, you were not going trick or treating. And if
Yeah.
anything, if someone came knocking at your door, it was an inconvenience more than anything else. Um, and I still kind of think it is now a little bit, but anyway, without rambling on, I always thought that the kind of Halloween event based stuff would kind of have its day in the UK. So I moved back to the UK and got into kind of nightclubs, events, all that sort of stuff. Was moderately to reasonably successful. And it was random. I was part owner of a nightclub at the time, and we had a promoter come in to run the Wednesday nights, and it was every Wednesday night. And it was a deep tech house night, so it was not in any way related to Halloween in any way, shape, or form. But the streets, there was like 2,000 people like trying to get into the club on the night, and it had nothing to do with the previous numbers on a Wednesday. We'd average like 400 or 500 people, which is still good for a deep tech house night on a Wednesday night. But my brain's just like, hang on a minute, like Halloween is here, it has arrived. And I'm sure that people who want to come out for Halloween would much rather go to a Halloween based thing rather than a deep tech house night. So the idea was like very much planted. In my mind at that time, and because I did drama and film studies, I just love movies. I love like performance, theatre, immersive theatre, all that stuff. I've always watched every single probably film that comes out, regardless of whether it's, you know, something that people should be watching or not. I'll watch crap and I'll still, you know, find some way of enjoying it. So years and years kind of passed by, and I took over a stately kind of estate that did weddings and all that stuff. It was called Beamish Hall, and they had like a nice set of woodlands out the back. So I thought maybe we should do this immersive horror thing, and kind of make the space a little bit more accessible to people who, you know, would normally just come for a wedding or, you know, an afternoon tea or whatever it is. So we called it Terror in the Trees, but I always had another brand in mind that if I was to do everything, you know, kind of myself, that I would kind of keep that to myself. So we did Terror in the Trees 2017, I think it was. So again, you know, I still feel quite new to the business, really, to be honest. As a lot of people, I don't know if you know about there's an event down in Crawley in London called Tully's
Mhm.
Shocktoberfest.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it? Now, they're 20 odd years, and we're still babies compared to them. So we did it. It was very successful. I think we did about 10 nights, and the capacity was about 750. And we were just literally, well, I was personally making it up as I went along. So I had no idea what the group size should be, how much we should charge, how many actors we should have, how we would scare people, how we wouldn't scare them, what would affect them, what wouldn't affect them, how we would like really train the actors, how we would audition the actors, you know, light, sound, everything was kind of like suck it and see. Let's see what happens. You know, there's many failures, many successes, but more failures. We often would end days with more questions than answers. But we, God knows how, but we did it. It sold out. It did very, very well. Um, I then proceeded to leave there. It was an acrimonious kind of leaving, and in my opinion, they kind of did me out of some money. I wasn't pleased about it, and I think personally they thought, we've got the brand here now. Where else can you recreate this? We don't really need him anymore, and there's nothing really contractual. So that's kind of on me for not kind of having my T's crossed and I's dotted. Um, so then I ended up being asked to come back into the nightclub game, while I was also speculating about a potential site to do what was always originally in my mind, which was Psychopath. The idea behind that was lots and lots of cycles on a path, you know, that you would just follow.
I like
It's like it's dumb, but luckily it really really works. So out of the dumbness, we got a good brand out of it, I think. So then, luckily, a mutual friend of ours who I was partners in the nightclub with, knew a guy who's now one of my business partners, Richard Tulip, um, who had a huge egg business on a farm called Lidsall Farm, but he used to be a fairly renowned DJ in the Northeast and in Ibiza and stuff like that. And he had been running the family business very successfully, but had the itch to scratch of kind of running and doing events. So I kind of got on the farm, met with Richard, hadn't seen him in probably maybe 20 years. I'm 42 now, just for clarity. And I kind of explained the concept. He was like, look, I really have got no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, fuck it, let's do it. So we basically started looking at the land. So they have got 700 acres. And for those who don't understand what an acre is, which was me at the time as well, I don't know what an acre is. It's what's an acre, you know. But it's basically 1 acre, I think, is two acres is one Premier League football pitch, I think. So you're looking at 450 Premier League football pitches. I mean, the space
that.
is it's huge. It's massive. Um, so we were like, you know, I'm walking through the woods. I'm like clawing my way through, getting cut to bits and all the rest of it. That was 2018. So I might be rambling on here, by the way. So if I ramble, you just ask me another question. So anyway, we basically try to recreate what was Terror in the Trees, but you know, on steroids, if you will, kind
Yeah.
of much bigger. We had the space. I'd had at least a year's worth of expertise, and a year's worth of expertise is actually like it's very misleading because you don't have a year's worth of expertise. I think we operated on 10 nights, so it would be the equivalent of you going to work for 10 nights and being like, I'm an expert. Because like in reality, you're absolutely not an expert. You've only done 10 operating nights. You know, you're still very much in the novice category. And we were still in the novice category, but lo and behold, Psychopath Year One was a huge success. Um, at that point, they had a chicken shed, a free range chicken shed. They were upgrading their chicken shed, which held something like 12,000 chickens. And I was like, must be massive. But they had to do a good amount of work to it to kind of either keep it to a standard that would be, you know, they provide Asda, Morrison's and all that sort of stuff with the chickens. So you obviously have to, you know, continue certain standards and all the rest of it. So or their other option was to potentially just build an entire new unit for said chickens. So they went for option two, and they said, well, really, let's roll the dice. Everything's looking good. Let's expand in year two. So we are collectively like gamblers, really, not in the sense we don't actually go out and gamble, but we are very we're not risk adverse at all. We love doing big things. We're very big thinkers. We like to attack the space, attack the market. Luckily, we're in a position where we were all happy to take every penny that we made out of the event and make a bit of a promise to each other that we'd never take any of the money out of it until we were happy that it was where it needed to be. And we didn't for 5 years. Every penny that we made for 5 years, the first 5 years, went like literally straight back in. And for the most part, we still do that now. So we started with a 45-minute walk in the woods. And we are now open for our sixth season, minus COVID, of course, the dreaded COVID, if anyone remembers that. We are now on 11 mazes, which is ridiculous, really. You kind of get used to it. It's kind of like, you know, if you look at yourself in the mirror, you just recognize yourself immediately. But if you look at yourself when you were 5 and then immediately look at yourself now, you think like, how did that happen? How did I get so big so quickly? It's kind of like that. I'm just used to it now, but
Mhm.
retrospectively, you go, it's absolutely huge. Like it's massive.
That was something that I'm kind of fascinated by because I'm like a huge haunt enthusiast or whatever you want to call it, and like I've been all over the world, and I feel like in that space of time, how much you guys have expanded and kind of went from strength to strength. I mean, 11 attractions is like theme park level, like and it really, and like I don't mean that in like a bad way. I mean that as in like a compliment that you guys have managed to put together like a slate, I guess, comparable to, you know, theme parks that are established for the last 60, 70 years that are like barely scratching maybe 8 mazes,
Mm.
10 mazes at most. And like, do you think that's because you guys are kind of willing to, I guess, bet on yourselves and it's like, we're all in this together kind of a thing?
You know what? It's probably stupidity. No, do you know what? I'm not going to compare myself to you because I wouldn't want to disrespect you. I'm sure you have a lot more knowledge than I do, but I have a thirst for it. So we went to St. Louis for where they hold, what's it called? Trans World, which is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of the horror, the mecca, really, and they have it in a huge stadium. So when we found out that, we were like, we need to go to Trans World. So we went to Trans World, and we were just wowed by all the electronic stuff and how, stuff you'd see in Terminator 2 in the 90s and stuff. You could just literally go, oh, great, I'll pick it up and just take it home. And it was just like, it's super inspiring. And it was then actually, as I kind of referred to before, we met. I mean, we were all naive. I mean, all of my partners. So there's 4 other partners. Um, so one of them handles the kind of finance side and the admin side and the stuff that I literally can't stand. One of them handles like the bars and the licensing and kind of temporary structures and things like that. One handles the build and one handles kind of sound and tech. Now that being said, I mean, I'm sure they probably wouldn't shoot me for saying this. I handle everything else, which is a lot of stuff. But I love it. Like I absolutely love it. I'll do 150 hours in a week, and although even if you love it, it takes time. I would still rather do 150 hours of what I love than 10 hours of something that I hate. Um,
Yeah.
so we went there and we met Stuart Bear, who is the owner of Tully's, and he's kind of the godfather of haunts in the UK, certainly. And he is a treasure trove of information. He is a super nice guy. He doesn't have that like I've got some secrets and I'm not telling you sort of a thing. I think luckily and as well he can kind of afford to be the same as we can because everyone isn't really in the same catchment area. It's not the same as an experience kind of that I would have with like clubs and stuff, or if you had a business, um, that, or even obviously you've got a podcast, you're immediately running up against everybody else because it's your catchment area is everyone, whereby our catchment area is physical humans who can physically walk, you know, into your building. Um, so luckily, it can be a bit like we do this, and we can kind of hold your hand, if you will. Now we don't really need our handheld, but we were certainly happy to receive all the advice, of which there was a lot. Um, and I think once we had a look at what he was doing, we were we adopted what I now call the festival model. So the festival model is um, lose loads of money while you build it because you know once you establish it that hopefully it will fuel itself and become something like far greater than what will be the temporary pain that you get, if that makes sense. So that's kind of we made our decision kind of then, and we've just been committed to that from the get go. Now, of course, could call it naivety because it was and it is. You could call it stupidity because it was and it is. But also, I also think that anyone who's got something that they believe in on that level, you can't be any other way because you will always lose battles and you will always have setbacks and you will always have things that go wrong. And if you don't accept that that's definitely going to happen, then you're never ever going to get the way you want to be. And I have that mentality completely that everything that we've hit, you can't do this, you shouldn't do that, we shouldn't do that. That's a risk. That's a risk. That failed. That didn't work. If every time those things didn't happen, like people just wouldn't open haunts because there isn't. It's not like should we open a Starbucks where they sell you the franchise and there's a massive book and you just go page one, do that, page two, do that, page three, do that. There is no manual. I'm going to LA in a couple of weeks to have a look at the 17th door. Um,
Oh,
and they
like,
do it completely different. Like they've just got their own manual that they're writing themselves. I've got my manual, I'm writing it myself. It's there's just it's everyone's take on it, isn't it? Really?
would you say then, like, because obviously I find that, and I think you guys have and are definitely like continuing to, I guess, reinvent yourselves year on year or whatever, but you can build, I guess, the best event, the best attraction in the UK, in Europe, in the world. But then if nobody finds out about it, it's just kind of lost in the mix of everything. How do you think, or what do you think it was? What would you credit the success of the event outside of obviously all the hard work and the risks and the money and everything that went into it? But I suppose getting it out there.
Yeah, well, there's definitely that. A lot of people will still even say to me now, and certainly when we started it, was how the hell do you get 2.5, 3,000 people to come to a farm that no one even knows is even there?
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of people, even people who are in the industry, have said like, I don't know how you're doing it. Like, I literally don't know how you're doing it. What's your secret? And all I can honestly say to that is I follow a lot of kind of influences as to how to do media and marketing and branding. And I do all the media, marketing, branding, videos, video edits, timelines. I do all the briefs for all the film, all the everything we shoot. I create all the mazes. I design all the mazes. So there's kind of no break in the consistency. So, for instance, Doll's House that we've released this year, we we wanted to build it the year before, but it was going to be an expensive maze to build, and we were already building more stuff. So we built something on the stage, and we created a show called The Doll's House, and it was a very theatrically based show. Um, and we wanted to deliver it in a really cool way with like really cool deaths. But then we actually got a bit carried away, and the show became it was too much narrative. So the show actually didn't work that well, to be honest. It was good, but we wanted it to be better, and it wasn't. I mean, we hold very high standards. Every time I go to my event and I watch it, I mean, people go, "You happy?" And I'm always happy when I see people having a laugh and running around getting scared. But I'm always thinking that could be better. That could be better. That should be better. That should be better. So with that being said, we always knew it was a prelude to the maze we were going to build this year. So with that in mind, I will always have a critical path or a timeline towards anything. I always think that nobody wants something they can have straight away. So if I was to walk to you in the street and I said, "Do you want this mobile phone?" You'd be like, "What?" And there'd
Yeah.
be a level of skepticism there. And then when I gave you it, you'd be like, "Oh, no, it's got a phone for nothing." Man. And you kind of wouldn't appreciate it on the same level.
Mhm.
I much prefer the kind of, if I walked up in the street and say, "Look, do you want to, like, I've got something like absolutely amazing here, like, honestly, if you've got 2 seconds, you're not going to believe this." You might just go, "Look, I don't have time," or you might go, "Oh, what have you got? I'm interested," if that makes sense. So I do think you've got to kind of like let it percolate, like let interest you kind of bubble up, and then give people something. So with that in mind, I'll always have a bit of a route to market with regards to how we manage data, how we take information, how we garner interest, how we start set up a mailing list, how we understand our market. There's a guy called Gary V. I don't know if you follow anything really to
Yeah.
do with Gary V. I've been a Gary V fan for about 10 years. I've read all of his books. One of his books is called Jab, Jab, Right Hook. And it's a lot about the right hook is where you want to be, but you can't just walk up to someone and slam them in the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
You've got to kind of let it bubble up, and you've got to kind of let it simmer, and you've got to feel people out, and they've got to feel your brand out and see if the brand message is the same and all that sort of stuff. And that just takes time. And if you've got time, and if you love it, then great stuff. So, and I do think that I am blessed with a great team who work with me, who genuinely understand what's in my brain. And I think that's really, really important, because I don't do it. I obviously do a lot of it myself, but I don't physically. I'm not a graphic designer. Like, I can't sit and do anything on the graphic design. I can't put a set of shelves up. So I've never built any of the mazes. And if I tried to build any of the mazes, they would be rubbish. so, um, and so, I mean, I can't act, and I do a lot of the physical training of the actors. So I am present at pretty much all the training sessions, and I deliver the syllabus of how we train the actors and stuff like that. But I do need an amazing team of people. So my graphic designer and my videographer literally understand me, and that is massively important. So when we come to designing the brand, we'll have a look at like loads of options, all the stimulus, and we'll do mood boards, and we'll talk about it and all the rest of it. But the Psychopath logo had to be hand drawn. Like,
Mhm.
nothing we would do, and it took weeks and weeks and weeks, because I knew it needed to look a certain way, and it's like they have to siphon it from my brain, and it just takes ages. So really, it's time. But when you know it's right, it's kind of like buying a house, or you could look at a million houses, but then you just know, and once the people who know, like, so the videographer knows how I want things shot, and he knows, when I give him a brief, he knows what is kind of what I'm looking for, and that just takes a lot of time. So getting people there is a lot of, "Ooh, look at this, we can't see it," and, "Ooh, imagine if you could have this, but you can't have it." So it's not saying, obviously it's not stupid. It's not as stupid as that, but it's on the same premise. It's like if you said to a kid, like, "Ooh, if you behave really well, I'll give you some sweets," and they'll be like, "Oh my god, I want sweets."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of it. And again, it's really understanding your market. It's understanding what people want. If you listen to what people want, they will fucking tell you what they want. Like, it's just whether you are able to listen to what they're saying.
So And I can already tell from the last like 20 minutes or so that like you're extremely passionate about this and you really do love it. How difficult then is it to or maybe it's not, to develop I guess a team of people around you who are maybe not of equal passion or creativity, but I mean up to standard with like we all gotta roll the same way, we all gotta go in the same direction here, because if we have people just kind of doing their own thing, or people are just looking for a quick paycheck or just looking to jump on something, like I mentioned before, and that wasn't a slight on you about, doing something like this because it's cool, but I definitely feel that other people would probably look at a business like yours now and be like, "Oh, that seems like the cool thing to do." Like, everybody
Yeah,
wants
yeah, yeah.
like a scream
I
park, or everybody wants to have that.
One of my favorite things about it is that I do think I call it Lewis Hamilton syndrome. Me, I genuinely think people look at Lewis. I mean, I don't even watch Formula One, so it's not like I've got a particular interest in this. I just think you'll people who look at Lewis Hamilton when he was winning all the championships, and people just think that doesn't take like he must just did they just give him that like do you understand how hard this man has had to work and what he's had to go through and probably like the probably genuine racism he's had to face in his life and all the challenges to reach this point. And what you say there about that, yeah, I mean, God, it might look cool, but I am telling you, it is fucking hard doing what we do. It is so hard, and the actors like work. It's what they do is phenomenal. The effort they put in is phenomenal. So yeah, I totally get the looks cool thing, but I absolutely invite anyone to try and do it because it is a minefield of stuff that there's no possible way you can predict it. You either have to live it and experience it and learn from it or not, because there's no way of doing it. But to answer your question, my standards for everything are ridiculous. Um, and I have to be mindful all the time that um it's not a competition, and you can't compare people and things and all the rest of it. But what I will say um is it in the industry or in the area that I'm in, I always think it's you my mantra is if you shine a spotlight on the stage in the middle of the stage, right, people will find it. If you are constantly looking for it and constantly trying to, I would say, milk it out of people or manipulate it out of people or incentivize it out of people. Do you know what I mean? I'll say, oh well, I'll work this hard, but I was in your position and blah 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 blah. I just think if you believe in something as I do, then you will give people confidence. And I think that I certainly believe it enough to give people confidence. Um, and I think the success of the event is because people like genuinely believe in what we're trying to do, in who we are, and what our ethos is. Um, and so it's so of course it's definitely hard to get people who want to see it through your eyes or have your exact same vision, but you've almost got to just accept that you're not going to get that. But what you are going to get is really really passionate people who really want to learn and they really want to help. And you'd be absolutely amazed, I mean, we pay all of our staff. We've never ever had a volunteer ever. I just wouldn't feel a very moral thing to do, to be honest. Obviously this is everyone can do what they want, but for me personally, I think it's if you can pay people, you should pay people, and we do. But with regards to that, there are people when there hasn't been a budget for extra hours and stuff like that who will still message you and go, I can help. Can I help? Can I help with this? Is it okay if I come down and help with this? Um, and there has been many, many, many people who have volunteered of their own volition. And of course, we've tried to remunerate them over and above what we would normally pay them when we don't ask them to come in for nothing. But when they come in, they are like, I understand why I'm here. I don't want anything. I just want to be involved. And that attitude is priceless, not even monetarily. It's far beyond that. When you have a team of people and you have an ethos of people who just absolutely love what they're doing and the act and the art of scaring people, it's a genuine blessing. It's far beyond anything that I could ever have imagined creating when we started out. And really that's the beauty of it. And I think that's the magic, if you will, that we've got there. If we've got so many amazing people who will quite often literally bend over backwards in mazes, to make sure that the event and the ethos and the psychopath in us all is there and it's delivered and the guests have a great time. Because and I always say this, we do it, we do a lot of chats and stuff with debriefs and briefs before that everyone goes out and stuff like that. And I mean this, and if any one of my performers who's listening, we have 178 actors, by the way, on a night time. um we can build some really really great stuff, and we've got some really talented people, but the performers make it come to life. They're the soul and the heart of it. We could buy loads of animatronics, but it just wouldn't be the same. There's just no possible way to be the same. Those people, those performers, are the life and the soul of what it is that we do. So my enthusiasm can only take it so far, but they're the real heroes. They're the real people who, have been permitted us to build it so big. We could build like 11 mazes, but if we only had 60 people who wanted to be actors, we couldn't have 11 mazes.
Yeah. Is this something now that, like, just from the outside looking in, it looks like such an expansive event already, and like you said, you kind of still feel like you're still in the early stages, even though it's gone from strength to strength every year. Is this something now that's become like a year round, like full-time project for you guys?
For me, it's full time. It was always full time, even when I didn't take any money out of it. I mean, I just love it. I mean, I always had other jobs, so it was fine. Um, and so I survived based on the other stuff that I used to do. But it's full time for me. And there's a lot of people who work year round on it. So there'll be some people who do maintenance, or some people who do this, or some people who do that. Um, we'll like pop in and out, but there's things happening. As soon as we finish, we do two big bonfire events at the end of the year, and we do our end of night and like awards. We do an awards thing every year, and it's hilarious. Like, I'll send you some pictures. But yeah, it's year round for me. So basically, what I will do is I will develop a prospectus throughout October. It's normally a bit of like a dossier, kind of a 30 to 40 page document that covers everything I want to do in the next year. And that's made up of my observations of the site, my experiences on the site, the kind of feedback I get from, the performers, the guests, and all the rest of it, but also based upon you kind of like research and things like that. Hence my glorious trip to LA in a couple of weeks, which I'm super excited about. But the idea is to identify all that, prepare it in November, agree it, go through the budgets, etc., so that we can hit the ground running in kind of the second week of January. So what we will try and do in the second week of January is have a look at what infrastructures and things and what things need to be kind of put in place with regards to maintenance, with regards to any groundworks that need to be done. Just making sure everything's kind of in place so we can move ahead as smoothly as possible. And sometimes that can mean lots of people there. So if there's groundwork, for instance, like, we made the car park bigger. This is, things like making the car park bigger. I mean, I didn't know how much a car park cost until we did our first one, and I almost had a heart attack. It was one of the reasons, one of the years we didn't make any money, that the car park was like 70 grand, and I was like, how can it be that expensive?
And I think it's something that a lot of people probably, when they run events or attempt to run events like that, they forget about the idea of like, oh, where am I going to park all these cars?
Oh, you know what? That's what I mean. That's literally what I mean about, it's the Lewis Hamilton syndrome, isn't it? You can look at it and go, God, God, they're smashing it there. Let's go over and do that. And I'm like, go and do it. Off you pop. Um, because it's things like that. We will look at the infrastructure. What does that mean for electricity? What does that mean for logistics on site, etc., and that can mean a lot of people on site, a lot of no one on site. And then we're always looking at kind of the full spectrum of what we'll need in terms of videos, content, what we'll need in terms of costumes, makeup, what we'll need in terms of recruitment of people to deliver that, whether that's performers, costume makers, and makeup artists. They're like, I mean, our core is always looking at performers and makeup artists, because without that, like, that there is nothing. And so you have to get that totally right. And I genuinely think, not to be critical of other people's events, I always find that they reverse engineer it, and that they will focus on the build, and they'll focus on all these, and they're all very important things and not important. But if you do not have the people to deliver it, it doesn't matter what you build. You can honestly, there are people who build stuff better than we do. There honestly are. There are people who have better tech in their mazes than we do. But there are people who have nowhere near enough actors. They have nowhere near enough bodies, because that's where they see that as being their wage percentage, or their spend, or their capex on the spend. They just don't do it. They would much rather have a much better sound system and much better lighting. And I would much rather have much better performers. And so, don't get us wrong, there are things that we have built there which are obscene. The team of builders that we have on the farm, and it's lucky. If you don't have a farm, and some people who've worked on a farm, you are not going to operate anywhere near as good as we do. And there are a lot of people, who do have them on farms, and it's great, because I've got a 70-foot pirate ship that's built to scale. And the speed and the accuracy in which they built that was and is insane. And
And it's
so,
so like it's so even to see like an image of it just in broad daylight without any kind of smoke or lighting effects or anything like that, it looks amazing. It's like you just dropped a pirate ship into the middle of nowhere.
oh, it's phenomenal. Like, it makes my hair stand on them. When honestly, I am basically a child wrapped in a human, like a genuine grown human's body. So I kind of had this vision. We had these kind of big barn doors, metal barn doors that slide, and I was like, what would be great? And I spend a lot of time at Disney, again, child. And I'll be like, wouldn't it be great if these hangar doors just open and you walk out and there's a massive ship there? And people would, and even my partners just look at me and they're like, you can see them doing it. Like, every idea I have, you can see them going, for fuck's sake, because they know they're gonna have to do it. So then we built the pirate ship at great pains, and when it was kind of the first, before the finishing touches were done, it was kind of a nice kind of back end of the summer, towards like July-ish, and I would sit with a bottle of wine and watch the sunset, and watch the stars from the boat, and it is still one of the greatest feelings I've ever had in my life, and I'll never ever forget it. Having that there is something that every little boy deep down wants to have in their back garden. It's not my back garden, and it's up the road, but still, it's unbelievable to think that is sat there, and that it's ours. So yeah, it's, yeah. Not to digress too much, but yeah, we do have some great builders and stuff, but we don't throw things like that at it as an excuse not to have manpower or woman
Yeah.
power,
Yeah.
or transgender power. Any power.
Yeah, just like as in a hopes of like if you throw something like set pieces like that there, that will just fill the void of
Mm.
everything else. So at this point of the year then we're like we're really starting to ramp up now towards Halloween, and obviously, the event is gonna be running. What does the typical event night, I guess, look like for you then? Do you have to be on site from morning till night? Do you have to live there? Do you have to sleep in the pirate ship?
Yeah, well, I would totally sleep in the pirate ship. I never have, as of yet. Disclaimer. A typical in this time, it's unbelievably time consuming. So last week alone, typical week for me before we even did the event, is we had freshers move in. So we had Newcastle and Northumbria Uni freshers move in. So we had freshers events in the morning. So 7 o'clock starts, finish at 4, and then we would do build sound and light checks still on things we were building, and we would do more training. I mean, we start training the first Sunday of August, and we had more training in every single night apart from Wednesday night, where we have a very special partnership with Sunderland Football Club, and We had some. I don't know if football is kind of your thing, but we had
Mhm.
a lot of the first team in, including
Yeah.
Job Bellingham, who's Jude Bellingham's brother. And now
Yep.
Job, in and of itself, has his own following, his own talent, and it's unfortunate that you have to mention it in the same vein, but you couldn't not as his brother. His brother is basically England's golden boy, and all that sort of stuff. Plays for Real Madrid. So we had a private night in kind of filming them in Doll's house. And then we had more training on Thursday night, more training on Friday night, and then we opened on Saturday. So I pretty much did not sleep last week. I think my total hours of sleep was about 12 and a half in 7 days. Um, that being said, I love it, so it's fine. But a typical day is this Saturday should get. We're open on Saturday. This Saturday shouldn't be as taxing, because what we find is things will happen and we go, ah, shit, because we still forget about stuff, all the time. We'll still is professional and as well planned as I would make out in some of the sentences that we do try to be, we'll still go, oh, hell, we need to do that. Because it's only because you can't see the wood for the trees. You stand there and you're doing everything, and then you turn around and you go, oh, sake. And you need to do it. Or just things will just happen. So a typical day for me will be up at 6. Um, anyway, so that doesn't make a difference. It just depends on how many hours on site I need to be there based on what works are happening or what we're doing with regards to checking on stuff and setup. As things progress through the season, it doesn't need as much like babying. Um, Everyone kind of finds their rhythm. We have a good level of returners, but we're always doing new stuff. So between people who are new and they've never worked on the site before and they've never been scare actors, or they've never done front of house, they've never done security, they've never done bars, they've never done car parking, they've never done the medic, they've never done security. I could go on and on and on. So we have a huge amount of these humans that are all like sitting over there, and then we have a big amount of these people over there who are returners. Some are returners of 5 years, 6 years, 1 year. But invariably, because we absolutely love making life difficult for ourselves, there is an addition to the site, 1 or 2, 3 additions to the site. This year, 3. Why? Actually, 4. Because we didn't have to do a fourth one, but the corn just wouldn't grow this year. So then I was like, well, we have to do something, and we can't just call it off. So now we have 4 new additions to the site that nobody knows how to do. So you've got the first ones where you kind of go, no, it's like that. No, it needs to be like that. No, it needs to do that. You need to do that, and you're constantly doing that. But then we have that bedding in process, which is kind of is the first like 3, 4 events. And
Mm.
fingers crossed. I don't want to jinx it. Touch wood. Anything can happen. I mean, you know this industry. Like anything can happen. Touch wood. You plan and you do health and safety things all the time, and you just want everyone to have a really good time, and you really don't want anyone to like twist their ankle or whatever it is. But anything can happen. It's a really rolling the dice sort of a game that we play. But fingers crossed, after the first 3 or 4 events, everyone's kind of like, I'm in my groove, I know what I'm doing, rinse and repeat, sort of a thing. And it needs a lot less, well, babying, monitoring really. Doesn't need the baby monitor on.
So then, speaking of that, I guess, like, and with logistics and different things, then you guys have, I guess, a vast amount of different styles of mazes or attractions or whatever.
Mhm.
Things like crawl space or vandalized. How would I phrase this question? How difficult is it, I guess, to push boundaries, but then also sit down and like you said, have I guess, the level-headed kind of logistical mind and be like, okay, well, at a certain point here, like we have to kind of draw the line on like we
Yeah.
need to do this, but also take care of both our business and the guest.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, that's a very, very good question, because it is something that I genuinely believe that we are very, very good at, in terms of um I am so against rolling, like churning out the same maze that's branded in a different way. Um, so many people do it, in the sense that if it's robot themed, it's the same maze. Well, it's a different maze, obviously, but the characteristics of the maze don't change massively, and the running of the maze doesn't change massively. The dressing does, and some of the lighting does, and the costumes change, but how they scare people doesn't change. How they basically go about it doesn't change. It's just another thing to walk around. And it is very difficult to stay fresh and but stay in within the boundaries of trying our absolute best to make sure they have a very safe yet really really fun night out. And we are gonna do stuff that takes risks. We are gonna do stuff that somebody might walk out of the maze and go, that was shit. And that is obviously the absolute last thing that we want. We do not want anyone to come out and go, that wasn't very good. But there's two kind of things that I live by, I've repeated this like that many times. For instance, well, entertainment is subjective from the get-go, right? So everyone knows the film Titanic, right? James Cameron, DiCaprio, Kate Winslet. I personally have seen it once, and that was enough for me, right? And I did film studies, right? But I know people who love it, and if you go on IMDb, there is a lot of people who will corroborate it's one of the greatest films ever, right? And that is fine, totally fine. But that shows you that with a multi-million-dollar budget, and with a movie that is accepted universally as one of the greatest ever made, it still isn't for everyone. So we don't have that budget. We don't have James Cameron. We don't have DiCaprio. And we are in the entertainment business, whether we like it or not, and it's subjective. So that in and of itself, before you start putting people, like telling them what to do, and putting them in situations where they don't want to be, that in and of itself is very difficult. And everyone's facing the same thing in entertainment as a whole, whether that be music, theatre, movies, TV, or anything, dance. So that's something that we're always dealing with. Everyone's dealing with it. But I am always looking to do something that we have not done before. I think that if we are adding another maze in, the customer journey, the customer experience has to touch you in a different way, has to connect with you in a different way. So Crawl Space was a huge roll of the dice. I mean, still people kick off about it now. Crawl Space is very, very small. It's not a vast, expansive maze like Cutthroat Island. So it cannot do the same capacity on a night time as Cutthroat Island. It just physically can't do it. It's not possible. But I really wanted to deliver that sort of a scare. So in order for it to be fair, I had to come up with a process where you have to come on site and you have to sign up to be on it, because there is no other way to make it fair. And VIP tickets have to do the same thing, and it's uproar. You can't do this. And so that's a risk. You are instantly pissing people off, right? Because you believe in what you want to do is the right thing to do overall. And even my partners were like, this it might not work, and I was like, you're totally right, it totally might not work, but I think it's incumbent upon us with our mission statement to do it. There are some people who went in and loved it and said it was amazing, and it was a totally different experience than anything they'd ever had. And then there are people who come, I didn't see the video, I didn't read the email, I didn't realize I had to be here at 5 o'clock, I've paid for a ticket, and I was really looking forward to it. And so just again, using that as like, that's one maze. And then we do another maze called Thunderdome, which doesn't have any actors in it, and we put pads on you, and if you get shot, you get an electric shock, because it's not like anything else you've ever done, and it's not like anything else that we do on the site. But it's on the site and it's included in your ticket, so you can go in to Psychopath, go to Crawl Space, and then walk out and go to Thunderdome. And they are not similar in any way, shape, or fashion, but they are intimidating and scary, and they do affect you. And with Vandalize this year, it's again totally different. I'm not going to give anything away, but we do something in there and in that event that's totally different. Of course, it's a risk. Of course, people might not like it. of course they might be intimidated. Of course someone will come up and go, that was too far, that was too much. But if we don't do it, what's the point? What's the point in doing it?
Mm.
We could honestly just make, if we wanted to, right? People love ice cream. Every year, let's just make ice cream bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so it takes it 90 minutes to get out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you mean.
You know, I just think copy and pasting something isn't the mission statement that we've got. It's not what I'm here for. I want to be creative and I want to take risks, and I want people to come up and say that was absolutely amazing, and then I'm willing to accept when people say that wasn't good and I didn't enjoy it.
Are you the person then that so like let's take you alluded to vandalize this year, and there's some things in there that people will encounter that they probably never have before. Are you the person that's responsible for, I guess, um the journey people get to go on? Like, is it just you that gets to kind of curate the mazes and things like that?
It's all of us will listen to my ideas, but 90% of everything that we do is from my twisted little head. It goes to the directors, and we all look at it, and we all vote, and sometimes we go, "That's too much. We can't do that," or "That's dangerous." Because I mean, don't get us wrong. Like some of the guys will go, "Really? We can we do that?" And then we will figure it out. And sometimes we'll not do it, and sometimes we will do it. My problem, I suppose, is the track record of the stuff that we've done has worked, but eventually something's not going to work. Like eventually someone's going to go, "That was rubbish, pal," because you can't, even the best band in the world don't keep knocking hits out. Like some of their music's crap, and
Yeah.
some of the stuff that I'm going to do or that we're going to do might be crap.
And for you then, when you're trying to come up with these ideas and stuff, where is that something that you actively sit down to do? Like, will you sit down and say, okay, right, vandalize 2024, let's see, or is it something that just you're just doing your everyday life, and then like something happens or you see something, you're like, there's an idea.
It's a bit of both. So crawl space, crawl space, for instance. I went to Halloween Horror Nights in Florida a couple of years ago, and um, I love Universal, love Disney.
Yep.
I'm not against any of it, but Halloween Horror Nights, unfortunately for me, I didn't get to go. I think when it was really, really good. Um, I went in the. It's now super litigious. You can't do anything. There's fire exits everywhere. There's security people everywhere, and it's all production. Like everything they do is all production. And god damn you, is it good? But is it scary? Absolutely not. But when I was walking through their mazes, this is what I was doing. Oh God! Ooh, look at that!
Yeah.
Look at that! Have you seen that? And for me, as a creator, there was a. They did. I think it was. What's the film with the black? Is it called Black Phone?
Yeah.
It's called. They did Black Phone. I think the year I was there. And in one of the rooms, super, super duper easy, right? You've got, when you see them old houses and they're made out of just slats, but they're kind of if you were to rip the wallpaper off, you could see through the wall because it's
Yes.
just
Yeah.
slats.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I was like, imagine if you could do a maze inside the walls. And obviously, the American reference to that is the crawl space. So if they've got a rat, the reference would be, "Oh my god, there's something in the crawl space," and that's where my brain was like, could we reverse engineer the maze? So my original idea for crawl space was that the actors were inside the rooms and you were in the crawl spaces. But then, in terms of how we would get that to work, it became difficult to kind of. I was going to get you to go over the top of a room so you could see. Because have you seen? Is it Shallow Grave with Ewan McGregor?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they obviously started. What's the guy? Christopher Eccleston goes a bit loony and he lives in the roof and he's looking through the roof. So I kind of take inspiration from kind of those sorts of things. So that's where crawl space started. That started with me just walking past something and going, "There's an idea," and
It's
then it's
why.
workshopping it. Is that a good idea? Will it work? How do we do it? And then again, you have to take into account the practicalities. And again, my business partners will all say, "This isn't practical. You can't get 750 people through this maze on a night." And I was like, "I know." And then we were like, is this going to be the first one where we just accept that we can't do that? And we go, yeah, yeah, it is. But we were happy because obviously we introduced other things last year where we go, this is the big maze that we're doing this year, but we're also doing crawl space. So we did the hunt last year.
Mm.
And the hunt was, to be fair, nothing to do with me. We went to Horrorland in Barcelona the year before. Have you been to Horrorland?
Yeah,
It's the best place in the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
Um, in my opinion, and I've met them loads of times now, like at all the scare cons and stuff. They make everyone look shit. I think they are amazing. I'm like a fanboy. I think they come at it from a pure entertainment, thespian-esque perspective of costumes, makeup, performance, and they deliver it immensely. Now they've got what probably used to be like a basketball thing. It's a water park for those people who haven't been to Horrorland in Barcelona. I'd recommend that you go if you're into that sort of thing, which I'm sure people who are listening are into it. But if you haven't been, it's on a water park, and no one wants to go. If you live in Barcelona, you do not want to go to a water park in November and October because and we think it's not that bad, but they think it's Baltic. Like they think it's -12. So they've gone. But they've got the glory of. We talked about parking lots and stuff before. They have infrastructure. Their bars are there. Their toilets are there. Their cameras are there. Their security is there. Like everything is there. So they get to go right, all that stuff we've got, so we don't have to think about any of it, and we can
yeah,
just concentrate on scaring. We don't have the luxury of that. We have to do all of those things as well, and that does make the job infinitely more difficult. But they have got what they use for, they must be for basketball or whatever they use it for, um, and they had come up with this really clever idea of like a little glow stick that goes on someone's neck, and it was kind of understand that if you're not intimidated by the actors, there's another reason to be away from them, and it's because you don't want to have your necklace taken off, and it's more competitive. But then when people start running, I mean, as you know, what panic is like a disease. Once it kicks in, it spreads. You watch all these zombie films where like someone and people start running, and then people are getting trampled. It's that level of hysteria, and we just loved it, and we were like, we need to do something like that because we literally don't do anything like that. Um, where we are, and we just think that that will really, really work. And to be fair, we again looked at the health and safety stuff. Like they don't give you like anything for your head at Horrorland. We were
yeah,
like, our guys are going to need masks, and people were like, no, they're not. And I was like, I'm telling you now, right? I mean, our floor in that barn, the back barn that we use, is concrete. I was like, if someone falls over and hits their head, like that's not good. We're gonna need it. So we gym matted the full floor, like a full gym mat. And then we gave everyone masks because, well, one, it also looks cool, but also like if someone runs into you, you run into something or you fall over, we are mitigating, any damage, and that's what we want to do. We want it to be safe, but we also want to kind of get the adrenaline pumping. So then the hunt again it's literally nothing like crawl space, and it's nothing like Thunderdome. It's just totally different, and I buzz off doing something totally different.
and that's something that I feel like, well, at least for me personally, kind of feeds into something you mentioned earlier about, I'll use a different term for it, I guess, but like the idea of drip feeding people things where that would intrigue me as a fan of this stuff where, yeah, you could look at the other side of the coin and I could give out and say, "Oh, crawl space, nobody told me, I didn't read the thing, and I didn't know I had to have a time, and I didn't this, and I didn't that." In my mind, that works the opposite way, where I'm like, "This is a cool, unique, like, exclusive new thing that I've never experienced. I have to make it my business to be able to experience that." The same as,
Mhm.
like you mentioned with the hunt, the idea of that, and, like, even some of the videos you put out there and, you're kind of explaining, I guess, a little, again, drip feed of, like, what you might expect when you enter the hunt. It's, like, just enough to get somebody on the hook to be like, "Huh,
Mhm.
now I have to go in there to know, like, what it is."
Mhm.
Um, do you get to experience, like, I know you've mentioned, you're taking a trip later, in the month, and you've been to Horror Nights and Disney and Horrorland. Is that something that you actively try to do every year, like, visit different places?
Yeah, yeah. I think y- if you really really into what you do, you should seek inspiration, and you should also understand the marketplace. You should understand what people want. You should understand what's good. I've learned as much in my life from watching people do things wrong than doing it right. You know, I would have bosses when I was a kid, and I'd be like, I never want to be treated like that ever again. You
Yeah,
know, so I think it's incumbent upon people who want to deliver a good offering, um, to go and have a look and see what other people's offerings are. Um, and that doesn't always have to be a vanity project. You don't want to have to just go to all the things that you really want to go to. You just have to look at everything, like, you know. And then once you want, as you say, once your interest peak, like, how interested are you in it? Like, are you going to have to just go there? Um, Luckily for me, I mean, me and my girlfriend, I'll stand in the queue and I'll be like, can you actually believe that this is my job? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous that I get to stand here on me hollies, basically, in a queue for like a fun maze or a ride or this or that and everything else. And I genuinely, I'm not joking, I'll do it. It's my job. It's obscene, like ridiculous. It's a stupid notion, but it's genuinely true. You know, the reality is I do have to be there. The fact that I absolutely love it, I mean, that's
it's a
just
plus.
yeah, is a total plus. But I do actually have to be there. I just absolutely love it. So it always is going to seem like more glorified than it is because I love it. But you do have to go there, you know. Again, everyone's going to have different opinions on it. Everyone's going to think they know better. Everyone's got an ego, especially me. You know, everyone thinks they're doing the best thing. Everyone thinks that they're ahead of the game. Everyone thinks what they're doing is the best. Everyone thinks their interpretation of it is the best. But the reality is, right, they're like the only people who can tell you that it's the best is when loads and loads of people tell you that it's the best. Um, and there are a lot of people who are like heavy hitters out there, and they've got really, really good customers, really loyal ones who really respect the events that they go to and they love it. So you've just got to always think, right, how can we be better? How can we be better? How can we be better? Otherwise, again, I always come back to it, like, what's the point if you're just gonna sit in the middle of the road and, you know, and stay in your lane and never try and overtake, then, you know, just get the train.
Yeah. Is there um is there a haunt or an attraction or a place that you visited that you would say, because I don't know if like in your field it works anymore, but like I don't know if I call it getting scared or maybe get the adrenaline going. Is there an experience you've had maybe that sticks out more than others?
No, so this is, I have a problem, and my problem is that I don't I don't acknowledge fear, and I don't acknowledge things like anxiety and stuff like that. It's like a problem, and whenever it happens, because I think that fear and anxiety, all they do is make the situation worse, and they don't make it better. So my brain just goes, this is not going to make it better, I'm not going to do it. So I just don't get scared. So all of my actors know this, and when I walk around a maze, they'll all try and scare me. You know, they've been trying to do it for 8 years. It's a bit of a thing. No one can do it. It doesn't work. I'm also so horrifically desensitized to everything. For instance, I mean, I've said this in conversations and stuff at parties and things before, because everyone goes like, "How are you not scared?" Um, have you seen the film Hereditary?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I watched Hereditary laughing like it was Dumb and Dumber, whereby my girlfriend at the time was like, could not look at the screen. So there's something wrong with me, that, you know, there's something wrong. You know, I've never hurt anyone. I've never hurt anyone in my life, but there's definitely something wrong, because I was watching it, and there's a scene, not to give anything away, where there is a woman who literally rips the piano string off and starts hacking off her own head with the piano string. And I was sat there, I kid you not, going, that is absolute genius. I'm like applauding it to that level, because I'm so desensitized. And all I can say is, whoever thought of that is super duper clever. And the idea of it is original, it's fantastic, it's brutal, it's hard hitting, it's going to get, you know, it's going to make people react, it's going to make audiences react. And you just think, wow, amazing. And so that's another thing that's wrong with me. I can't see past that level. You know, you watch I haven't seen obviously Follow You Do yet, but I'm looking forward to come up. But then you look at that shot where he's behind the glass, and she
Mhm.
kind of goes like that, and it kind of sits in it. And it's not like scary, but I watch it and I just go, someone would have thought of that shot and the planning of it and the angles and not to get the reflection off the mirror and off the glass. And I'm just like, my brain just just assesses things like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm not encouraging anyone to hold me at legitimate knife point because I probably would get scared. um, but at this point, the mazes don't scare me. I'm just more fascinated by how clever, people are and how they execute their ideas.
So you reckon, because I'm assuming if you're taking a trip to LA and you're going to visit the 17th door and stuff, you already are kind of well aware of like how infamous the 17th door is for
I
different things.
am. I am. It's funny because I watched the documentary on Amazon, and it's an unusual thing to identify with someone on a level that I identified with the guys on there, and I was like, this is my life. I literally, this is me, right? But this guy is me. So I watched it and I sent them an email thinking nothing of it, just saying, look, like, love the show, the ingenuity, you take on Halloween and scares and haunts and blah blah is brilliant. Like, just from one person who runs one, and I just fully identified with it. But then they emailed me back, the owners emailed me back saying, we've had a look at your stuff, we really, really like it. If you ever come over, let us know, and we'll give you a tour. And so I was like, right, looks like I'm going to see, what's going on. So, I'm obviously not fully aware because I haven't seen everything in all the doors and stuff, but I am I'm prepared, let's put it that way. And I'm super duper excited to just see and talk with people who are like, above me, whose minds work in completely different ways, so I can go, right, this is how you envisage that's how you went about executing your solution, these are the problems that you faced, that's how you overcame them, this is what we find the customers want or what they don't want, etc., etc. So to me, I'm absolutely fascinated, and I cannot wait to kind of have a look at like both the experience as a guest, but also kind of behind it.
I have one or two more questions before I let you go. One of them would kind of tie into something you've just said, which is, would you say that that's a core piece of maybe your successes throughout your different ventures and now into this, is the idea of like always willing to learn, kind of always willing to hear other people's opinions? I feel like some people maybe, let's say they're in your position, they go, okay, well, I'm pretty established now at this, and like we're making a name for ourselves, so I don't really need to listen to anybody else. I already know the answers.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what? I don't know how to answer that, but to be totally honest, like, I don't want to give the impression that I'm constantly sitting with my ears open, because I'm genuinely not. Like, some people will come to me with ideas and I will dismiss them, like, quite brutally. I'll be like, look, that's not going to work. You haven't thought it out. Because in the nicest possible way, I love my performers, but every single one of my performers thinks they know what we should be doing next year.
Mm.
Like, every single one of them. And no disrespect to them, like, a lot of people will, like, anyone can have an idea. The idea in and of itself, you can't walk into the bank and just get a loan for £1 million on based on an idea. It has to practically work. So my ears are open to people who have thought something out. Um, but I don't have a great deal of patience and understanding and time to listen to, well, just wild ones. So I want to be totally honest with you as well. I'm not some sort of like total saint who just sits and goes, please, I am listening to you all. I'm just not like that at all. I can be very much like, that is idea is just rubbish. Like, it's just not going to work. Like, how are people even going to get in? How are they going to get out? How much money is it going to cost? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? And so I think, to be honest, if I was to put, I would never describe myself as successful. That's for somebody else to say. But I will say that I am a very, very, very passionate person. And I have a unyielding belief when I've made my mind up that it's going to work, and I'll do whatever I need to do, within reason, of course. I mean, for instance, I've just started watching I don't know if you into WWE and stuff, but I don't watch it now, but I did when I was a kid.
Mhm.
But I've just started watching it on Netflix, and a
Mr.
lot of it's
McMahon.
exactly. And I'm
Same.
not that, but if you look at
Yes, I get exactly what you mean as well
yeah,
about that idea of, like, I'm willing to do whatever for the business.
mhm.
I'll
To
cut off
know
my
that
own arm.
yeah, something's gonna fail, right? It's what you do when it fails that matters. It's not like no one wins every game. Like it just doesn't happen. You look at, I mean, look at J.K. Rowling. I mean, people will go to Harry Potter world. I'll probably look at how much money she's got and think, God, lucky bitch. But the reality of the situation is, right. I mean, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth. I haven't even heard this, but like, imagine, let's just say, like, me and you were J.K. Rowling's friends when she was like 20, right? And then we're sitting in the pub and we're talking about, let's just say, like, you're in IT and I'm studying to be a doctor, right? And we're discussing this, that, and everything else, and blah, blah, blah. And J.K. Rowling hasn't got a job and she's writing a book about a bloody boy wizard, right? People would be like, "Are you still writing that fucking stupid book? Like, honestly, can you not you want to get a real job at some point or another, right?" And it takes people who believe vehemently in what they're doing in order for kids to be able to go to Harry Potter World. Because without that woman, and I honestly don't even like Harry Potter. I don't like it, right? I think that he's only got one wizarding trick and he just basically recycles it, and it's a bit crap, to be totally honest. But regardless of what I think about it, is irrelevant. That woman has created something that is far beyond something that anyone could possibly ever imagine, to the point where you can now walk into Harry Potter world. That in and of itself takes levels of commitment that people do not understand to create something of that level. And I believe that if you believe it, you have to have that. Otherwise, you're never going to get where you need to go. So I think it's my ability to not let failure affect me in any way, shape, or form, because it's going to happen. The problem is people delude themselves into thinking it's not going to happen. They want to have a million quid and they want it tomorrow. They've got an idea and they want success to come immediately. It doesn't really help in the Instagram, TikTok world, where people have a 4 second kind of attention span. Look, I'm doing this, I've got a million quid the next day. Look at my car, look at this, look at this, look at this. The reality of the situation is that it just isn't reality. The reality is you are going to lose, and you're going to lose, and you're going to lose again, and lose again, and lose again, and lose again. When that happens, the question is, what are you going to do about it? Because that's the difference. Loads of people have got great ideas. It's just they just quit just far too soon.
It's funny, I went to a Gary Vee conference a couple of years ago in Dublin, and, he talks about the idea of, and he's mentioned it before, I think, on podcasts and stuff about, like, the 10-year overnight success where everyone's like, "Oh, wow, you know, oh, you done this, you done that, oh, how lucky." And it's like, motherfucker, I worked for like the last 10 years, 7 days a week,
Mhm.
23 hours a day. Like, you have no idea. I gave up everything, girlfriends, drinking,
Mhm.
partying, fun, blah, blah, blah. And the amount of people actually, and it ties into what you just said, that would waste their one chance to ask Gary Vee a question and do like that stupid shit of like, "Oh, can you like can you like give me a job or whatever? Can I?" Like, he kinda does that,
Yeah.
and, like, it can be seen as quite cruel, but I think it ties into what you said about, like, I can be equal parts, empathetic and listen and open to things, but then also quite a realist, and some people may take it up the wrong way of, like, just to see Gary just be like, "Why? Why would I do that? What can you like, what? This is not how you win." Or this thing of, he would ask people, "Okay, where do you see yourself in 10 years?" And they're like, "Oh, I see myself as a millionaire." It's like, "Okay, how?"
Yeah,
"Oh, no, I
yeah.
just see
So
myself as a
you got to tell
millionaire."
them that you've got a
Like,
50-step program.
I have no idea about, like, what industry. I have no idea about how I'm even going to
Mhm.
attempt. And he's like, "No, I'm gonna tell you right now, you will never see $1,000,000 ever in your entire life. Your whole family's lifetime will never happen because you have no idea."
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's like, that was
100%.
kind of fascinating to me. I was, like, a little bit fascinated by just how, like, and then some people are like, "Oh, he's such a dick. He's such a." I'm like, "Well, actually, do you know what? He kinda has a fair point." Is that something that you've dealt with in your life then? Because obviously you mentioned, you were in the States, um, you were playing football, you were teaching, um, you were in events, nightclubs, all these different things, and now this. And, like, I would say that they're, um, I don't know, you've kind of lived the 1% life, I guess, versus, and I would imagine the UK is the same here as it is in Ireland, where I don't know if it's society, but you're kind of expected to just like, finish school, just get a nice cushy job and just kind of put your head down and just get on with it, get a house, get a mortgage, and just kind of don't ever really, aspire to anything.
Hmm.
Is that something that you've had to deal with in your life where
Yeah.
maybe you said these things out loud and people go, "Fucking idiot, like, what are you talking about?"
I don't think people are brave enough to say it to my face ever. I mean, I'm from a council house, right? So it's me and my mum. She raised me on her own, like without a pot to piss in. Um, I've got a council house mentality, and so like if someone said that to my face, they probably wouldn't get away with it. Like put it that way. And I'm
Yeah,
not, I'm not an aggressive person at all, but I certainly, I don't sit and take shit from people either. Um, I definitely, I'm not married and I'm 42, right? And so, like, if you just use that as a mantra, and I've got a lot of my friends are married and they've got kids and all the rest of it, but you are the black sheep, right? When you are, as you say there, you are the black sheep when you are not married because you're considered a failure. You're not in a certain job because you're considered a failure, and so you will be looked at, because the barometer of success is marriage, a good job, a good house, kids, and I have, like, for a long time never had any of those things. So you can see that you are being quietly judged. Like, not what's wrong with you, or like when are you going to settle down? Like, it's the same with when you're in events. Like, do you not think you should, like, come on, you can't be in nightlife your whole life and this, that, and everything else. Or even when I first went to the States, I was like 27, and people were like, people go to the States when they're like 19. Like, do you not want to just get like a proper job? Um, so I've definitely had that. I have always been told from the get go, including my mum, that I shouldn't do that. So, for instance, when I first went to America, and, my mum is like the salt of the earth. I adore the woman, and everyone who knows me knows I adore the woman. Without her, I would be nothing. I would have never had any food to eat. I wouldn't even have been born because she had to actually bear me. So I don't think a lot of people understand. I mean, some people do love their mums and all the rest of it, but some people don't understand how important mums are. And my mum is the best. But she comes from a background, like mums do. They care. They want to make sure you're all right. They want stability, safety. Um, they're not risk takers, like
yeah.
traditionally, like the whole Kardashian supermom thing only happened very recently. Like, my mum doesn't know about entrepreneurialism. Like, my mum just wants you to be all right and make sure you've got some food, and she'll be more than happy. So when I told my mum I was going to America, she's like, "You can't do that. Like, who goes to America? You can't just go and work in America." And when I went and I did drama and film studies, my mum was like, You want to do drama and film studies?" And all of my friends, I was ostracized and ostracized myself from all of my friends when I did drama and film studies, because you didn't come from, biker, which is a council, which is a fairly low level council environment and background, and go and do drama and film studies. Like, you just don't do it. You will be vilified immediately. You will be talked about. People will question your sexuality and blah blah, blah. Like, it just, don't get us wrong though. It's not like I had a horrible life, but the reality is, like, eyebrows were raised and have always been raised. And I didn't really do very well at school because I won't be told what to do. Like, I'm just a bit of a prick, to be honest.
But I think that's and it alludes to what you said earlier about, the idea of, like, people quitting too early or giving up before they've even really gotten started, and I think a lot of what you just touched on there, it's important for people to hear because so many people out there in any sort of creative venture probably feels like that and allows that to kind of dictate whether they follow through on what they've said or not.
Mm. Yeah.
Somebody saying like, "Oh, that sounds fucking dumb. That's it. Like, what are you doing that for? Why don't you have a girlfriend? Why don't you have a missus?
Hmm.
Why aren't you getting engaged?"
Hmm.
And it's all that stuff, and then they just end up being miserable.
Yeah. Do you know what? If I could just give everyone like a piece of advice, it's just honestly, like, my belief is I would rather have absolutely nothing and live and die by my own decisions than have than be in an environment where you want to affect change, no matter whether that's in your workplace or university or college or school or anything, or your friend group. You can't affect change. No one's listening to you. You've got really, really good ideas and you just basically get shut down. And so I would rather. I mean, it's not practical, so it's like, it's all well and good saying it, and of course there are so many, permutations to what I'm saying. But I would honestly, like the Gary V 5-year plan, 10-year plan thing, just think about where you want to be and just jump to take the risk, because your idea probably is great and it will succeed. It's just about how long you are willing to, like, need the door. It's as simple as that. So that's the one thing I would say. Like, no matter what anyone tells you, would you not rather just be wrong on your own terms than mediocre by somebody else's?
That's a really good piece of advice. People should clip that. Okay, right before I let you go, where can people find out about more about what you guys are doing, and where's the best place to keep up to date?
Um, to be honest, social media is the best place to stay up to date. Instagram's, I would say, if you were to pick one platform,
Yeah.
Instagram's probably the best, because it's the one that's most accessible in terms of like on in the moment time stories and stuff like that. It's the most quickly, easily accessible thing where things just go on. Um, so I would say Instagram. Of course, we have a mailing list. Of course, we have Facebook. We have TikTok, um, and we obviously have the physical event itself. But I would say if you were to pick one forum, have a look at us on Instagram, because you will kind of get a good idea of what we're doing and when we're doing it. Um, of course, go to the website, have a look at the website if you want it. It's really more for the nitty gritty, like health and safety, and what age you need to be, and frequently asked questions about whether you can have your tickets refunded. No, you can't, but you should know that before you buy the ticket. Can you try and transfer your tickets to another date? No, you can't transfer your tickets to another. Would you ring up Justin Bieber and ask him to move his concert? Not really. Like, if you've bought the ticket, we didn't make you buy the ticket. It's kind of those sorts of, if you want to get into the minutiae of like what to expect. And we have a page on there which is entitled Vital Viewing, prior to your psychopath visit. And on that page, it is things like obviously health and safety, what to wear, blah blah blah. But it's also like crawl space. You need to get out. You need to get sign up. And the night show, don't miss it. It's on at this time. What to expect in the hunt, all that sort of stuff. So there's all that sort of stuff. So if you are going to come as a guest, the website, because it does have the small
Mhm.
print. It's got all the nitty gritty, the boring stuff. It's all on there. But if you want to just view from afar and have a bit of a giggle, Instagram.
For everybody listening, whether it's audio or video, the links to all that stuff will be in the description on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Another question that I have is, when will people, and I've seen other people actually mention this, when will people be able to buy like that shirt you have on right now? If they physically can't get to the event, will we ever be able to pick them up through the website or anywhere like that?
Yeah, well, yes, we will. There are two things in development. One is the shop. I design all the merchandise. I'm like, again, nerd, total nerd.
Nice.
Um, so we've got the Don't Talk to Strangers one, which is this year. Um, the we have the website in the shop, so we can have the facility to do that, because it's logistically quite chewy. And we also are developing an app, was supposed to be out this year. The app, you should be able to do everything on the app, and also we want to update. Very much like we've got those kind of Disney dreams where you can see the queue
Nice.
times and see what's happening, and get to be the first to get tickets, to be the first to watch videos, be the first to do this, and blah blah blah. So all that sort of stuff's coming. But with regards to merch, if you send you, when this is not for everyone, just for you, if you just send me your address and stuff, I will send you some merch on me.
Not for everybody. Disclaimer, not for
Yeah,
everybody.
that's just that. Yeah, you have to invite me on your podcast, and
Um,
you have to look like you're interested in what I've got to say, and then I'll send you some merch, which for
um,
some people is a very expensive price to pay.
not for me. Not for me whatsoever. Final question then. Let's fast forward, I don't know, let's say 10 years. In an ideal world, where would you like to see Psychopath be, or what kind of event would you like to see it expand into?
You like, if I'm being totally honest, it very much like the J.K. Rowling thing. It's going to sound stupid. I would honestly love to write a film and a TV show, and I would love to potentially look at franchising it. We have had a couple of discussions with a few theme parks about franchising it, and that very much could happen to prove concept. Really, we've had conversations with various countries, and even in the UK with their theme parks and things like that, because luckily, although it is a very cool thing to see, and it's of the moment, it's of the zeitgeist, because it's very niche. There are not actually that many people who know how to actually do it properly. I'm not saying I know how to do it properly. That was not that's a disclaimer for that. But there are not a lot of people who have experience in doing it. And Halloween is only becoming more prevalent and more of a thing that people want to attend. So there's a lot of outlets that want it to be made available. So, you know, touch wood, Psychopath could stop on Saturday because God knows something could happen at the event, like fingers crossed. We never want that to happen. But you always got one eye over your shoulder and one eye in the very, very far distance, because the sky's the limit. In 10 years time I could be proven to be, this could be a prophecy, or it could be me looking like an absolute idiot. But if I'm not prepared to believe it, then who is going to? Because it's not going. If I'm not going to, no one's going to, are they?
That's a fair point, and I think that's something that everybody listening, because I always get questions like that. Oh, could you ask this person about advice and stuff? And I feel like there's been a lot of that sprinkled throughout that people can take to their own creative endeavors and
I
whatever.
would I would love anyone to like look at anything that I've said and think, oh, that was good, because I'm not a clever person. I'm like, I'm just a normal person who didn't even finish school.
There we go. I think that's a perfect place to end it. This has been fantastic. As you can probably tell, I would talk all night to you if I could. I would love to revisit again, maybe at some point, in a couple
Absolutely.
of months,
Just
get
let me
over all that
know.
madness. I would love to pick your brain again and do this again.
Absolutely. Well, just let me know. And are you visiting anything over the Halloween period? I assume you're on the move.
Yeah, well, few things in Ireland. I'm heading to Fright Nights in Thorpe Park this coming weekend. I've actually never been to that.
It's good.
Gonna do that. Potentially Horror Nights in Orlando, potentially. I was actually supposed to go to New York. There's a couple of I have family in New York, so there's a couple of haunts out there I was
Of
gonna
course
go
you
to.
do. It's like, you guys built the place. You've got to have it. You've got to have some roots there, haven't you?
So, yeah, I might try and get out there, but yeah, it's hard now because, like, there's so many different places, and I'm like, and now the UK is like another one where I'm like, "Okay, I kinda wanna go to the UK for, like, 2 weeks and just, like, just
Yeah,
move
yeah, yeah,
all the way
yeah.
up through the country."
Hmm.
And I'm kinda thinking of the logistics of that. I might miss the States this year and maybe do that instead.
Yeah. Well, I assume that you get some tickets to places, but anywhere you want to go, let me know, because we are a bit of a tight knit group of owners and stuff, and I can always say, look, so and so wants to come down. Can you please give them a ticket? So if you
I wanna
do,
get up to you guys. That's definitely on the bucket list.
well, you will absolutely, not have to pay for tickets and food and drinks and stuff if you come to my event.
I'd be just happy just to get there. That'll be enough for me, but
Where are
like I
you
said,
based? Where are you based?
in southeast of Ireland in Wexford.
And I
So,
don't
like,
know.
maybe,
I'm
like
terrible. So is that Republic or Northern? Because that's probably an
yeah.
offensive question to
No,
ask,
no,
is it?
no, it's not at all. It's, it's Republic. It's just over an hour from Dublin.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's not like, yeah, I can be to the airport in, like, an hour and 10 minutes
Yeah,
if
yeah.
even. It's, like, right down in the
Dublin
south.
and Newcastle flight is a thing, isn't it? It is, isn't it? I'm
Yeah,
sure it is.
yeah, yeah.
Oh well,
Yeah, definitely is now. I feel like
yeah,
since, like, the amount of people I see, like, that take trips there just to party all
yeah,
weekend is
yeah.
like
Well, the two cities have a very, very clear ethos regarding getting mortal, like, you know.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, it's been great. I, appreciate you taking the time after all the fucking shitty logistics and things on my
Yeah,
end.
well, like I say, one thing, at least my Mac's updated
Yeah, that's true, and this worked the
every
second
time.
time.
Yeah, it does. I'm on
This
13%
worked.
battery. What a great number. And I've missed my head of
Um,
department meeting, so never mind.
I wouldn't mind 45 minutes ago, I was like, I'm gonna have to shut up. I'm gonna have to stop talking. He has a meeting to go to. I was like, "Just wrap it up now." And then it was like, I just couldn't stop myself from talking.
I,
Um,
I just think if we're going to do it, might as well do it properly. Otherwise, what was the point in doing it?
yeah, I think people well, at least I know, like, a lot of people that listen to the show are big, like, fans of Halloween attractions and haunt attractions, and they always kinda wanna know some of the more I'm sure you know this, like, but people who are fans of these events aren't just satisfied anymore with just, like, going to the event one night. They wanna know the director, they wanna know his thought process, they wanna know how he comes up with ideas, they wanna know logistics, they wanna know this, they wanna know that,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
people are, like, nearly as interested in that now as they are in the actual event.
I think that's the reality TV sort of syndrome, isn't it? Like it's the thing that you should kind of know, and because people are so available now, it used to be before social media and stuff. There's no way you could even ever find anything
Yeah,
about anyone because they had no platform of their own actual personal existences. But now everyone has a personal platform. It's accessible. That like their life becomes interesting, even though everyone's life's pretty much the same. I mean, at the end of the day, it
yeah.
pretty much is the same. Just like if you're eating something, it just depends on what you're eating, what you're driving. Pretty much we're all the same. We're all like slagging someone off or listening to someone slag them off or like having a laugh or wanting to go out to have a good time or dealing with the same sociological issues with like this or economic. Everyone lives the same life, to be totally honest. It's just about how you what your interpretation of that is, because everyone's eating shit and all
Mm.
that, like, to be honest.
Yeah, like, the amount of times I've had these conversations and, like, not that I was expecting anything different, but then you're, like, kinda put at ease being like, "Ah, other people have to, like, live life too. It's not just me that has to put up with, like, headaches or whatever, or this or that,
Oh
or"
yeah, like everyone's living, like everyone's got loads of shit to deal with. Everyone's got loads of people who love them. Loads of people, well, not everyone's got loads of people, but everyone's got loads of people who don't like you. You've got loads of people who like you in equal measure. Unless you're like Brad Pitt, of course. The fact of the matter is, everyone's pretty much. And even if you Brad Pitt, you have to they got new problems like who's your real
Mm,
friends. Everyone's got like loads of stuff to deal with. Like no one's really living the dream. They're just not.
that's something actually that I've heard, Gary Vee mention before about, like, that idea of, like, it's just different levels of problems and, like, different versions, and nobody, like, it's that, rose tinted, like, it's not
Mhm.
all like that, and like I said before this conversation, I would have, with very little knowledge, been like, "Oh, that dude has no problems. He's living the best life ever. It's like the dream job. He doesn't have any issues
Mm.
whatsoever. Infinite money, fun all the time." And it's like, no, dude, I still have to put up with lots of bullshit, and then all the regular everyday shit on top of all this other shit.
Yeah. Like, do you know what though? In the nicest possible, like I am, and I'm not just saying this for the, for the betterment of this. I am an unbelievably lucky person, and the people who know me know that I am. One of my best friends is in a wheelchair, and
Mm,
he is my hero. Not because he's in a wheelchair; it's because of what he's done. He's a multi-millionaire. He wasn't before. He perfectly functional legs and stuff, and he lost them in a horrific accident. We still got them, just lost the use of them. And this is, I think about this almost every day. If he wants to go to the toilet, do you understand how much forward planning to
mm,
go to the toilet that this man has to do, right? And the human race, this is, will bitch about anything, but we can go to the toilet at will, and we take even that for granted. And to me, if you don't have the attitude and the realization of how absolutely incredibly lucky you are, like to have your health and to have your life and stuff, then you're not looking at it from the right angle, and you need to keep moving around the sphere until you get it.
that is actually when you really break it down like that. The more of these conversations I have, it kind of opens up your mind to, like, oh, okay. Yeah, I've got no idea really on the grand scheme of, like,
Mm.
how shit things could be or how good things could be depending on
Yeah.
your perspective and, like,
Uh,
how you
I
look at
did a
things.
I did a thing for guide dogs for the blind because that's my thing. Like guide dogs for the blind are like literally. I have a heart of stone, but if I see a guide dog, like I will
That's
like
it.
start welling up. I'm not joking because of like that how devoted they are. Um, and I did 24 hours sponsored blind ones, right? And to kind of get a perspective,
Mhm.
and so what I did is like my then girlfriend like fully wrapped me up. It was like gore pads and tape and stuff, and I could not see. Um, and of course, people who can't see, you close your eyes and think, "Oh, that must be bad." But you know what becomes so I woke up with my eyes closed, right? That was so my first 6 hours, I think, of the 24 were asleep, right? So I'll give that bit away. But when I woke up, right, do you know what became immediately clear? I had no idea what I was wearing.
Mm.
And that had not occurred to me
Yeah.
ever before, right? Like, how do you even know what you're putting on, right? And I didn't know when I was finishing I didn't know when my food was finished. Like, I had to physically put my hand in my own food to check if it was finished.
Yeah. That's all those, like, little everyday battles that you would never.
And yeah, you kind of it's just perspective. You know, if you look at all the stuff that you've got that you don't realize that you've got, you know, you are living a plentiful life. You just do not realize it.
I've taken probably more from this conversation than anybody, to be honest. But like I said, man, it's been a pleasure. I don't want to hold you up anymore. I've already held you up for 2 hours now.
No, that's
Um,
fine.
but yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'd love to stay in touch, and I would definitely love to do this again and pick your brain.
Yeah.
I will actually shoot you an email about the logistics of getting there. Because it's something that's been I've been toying with the idea now from hearing you saying, "You know what? Sure, just do the stuff. You can make it work if you wanna make it work." And I'm like, "Technically, I can get to Newcastle quite easy. Technically, I can get to the UK quite
Mm,
easy, so it's not that." It's just that
yeah.
thing of, like, I guess, I don't know, making the excuse or waiting for somebody else to, like, give the permission to be like, "Yeah, it's easily done. You can just do it."
Yeah, I mean, it's do you know what? Like, nothing's easy. As long as you just go like nothing's easy, but I'm just going to do it anyway. You know, you could live in
Mhm.
Azerbaijan; it would be much harder to get a psychopath.
I guess so. Um, but yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. I'll shoot you an email later on, and
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much for asking me to be on it, mate. It's been, you know, you seem like a super down to earth, honest person, and you know, just from you know, from me to you, it takes a lot of courage to start a podcast. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, to you know, watch those views come in, you know, to ask someone to come on. You know, like I've thought about having a podcast with some of my friends and stuff before. Luckily, I mean, I've got a couple of friends who've got like fairly big followings, which is, you know,
mhm.
again, lucky for me. Um, but everything that you say and everything you do and organizing all of the people, you know, to come on and how far many weeks ahead you have to think in terms of content, and you know, it takes a lot of courage to. You must have to say to your mates, "I'm doing a podcast," and then you must deal with varying levels of support, where some people are like fully behind you, driving it forward, like and listen to everything you do, and then you'll get the odd raised eyebrow. You're still doing that. Like, it's never going to work. You've been doing it for this amount of time, but trust me, like, keep doing it. You seem like a fantastic person, mate, and you clearly know what you're talking about. I haven't made a reference to anything with regards to entertainment or horror or whatever that you didn't understand what I was talking about, whether it's been haunts or whatever. So you clearly know what you're talking about. Um, so the only way is up, mate. Just yeah, keep, and you seem, like I say, you seem like an absolutely class bloke.
I appreciate that because I would've, and I think I've said this before, I would have always been like the opposite kind of person. Like I would have all these ideas or have all these aspirations, but I would sooner stand in the corner and not say anything just for fear that somebody else might go. And
Hmm.
I like for a long time I done this for I think the first year I started the idea of doing this, I actually signed with Eli Roth's Crypt TV at the time. And like within 6 months of having this idea, and I kept that a secret for years just out of fear of like mates being like, you know, if you're down the pub or whatever, and they're like, "What?
Hmm.
What shit you're writing about horror movies or you're going to,"
Hmm.
it's like, "Oh, that's cringy." And like I kept that quiet for so long. And there's so many times I've been like, and again, it's not for any real reason. Like do an episode and it has 250,000 views, do another episode that has 70.
Hmm.
That never really got to me, as in like let me give up. It's more the idea of like that person knows that I do a podcast and they think I'm a
Yeah, 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 yeah. Do you know what though? Right, the top and bottom of it is, mate. Right, there are two things you need to take from that. Is it's dead easy to tell someone, right, that they're not doing the right thing. You know, criticism comes very easily and it just washes like straight. It just comes out of people's mouths. They don't realize the effect it's having and all the rest of it. And it's dead easy to be negative. Um, and the reality of the situation is, right, the people who you have around you, if they are not smiling when you're smiling, that's the like if you are doing this podcast and it makes you smile, if those people have any interest in you whatsoever, then the fact that you're smiling should be their only interest, like whatsoever. And if it's not, then you have to start thinking, well, are these people like acquaintances or are they genuinely my friends?
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've like and still probably I'm like learning those lessons of like I need to kind of accept that rather than trying to change the facts or the circumstances to suit other people's
Mm. Yeah,
narratives.
why? Like you're not like doing it. You're not a criminal, are you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're another man in the world with a dream, and at one point, or another, if you keep going, it's anything with momentum. Like it's a long time to get momentum going, but once it's going, once you get the trajectory, hopefully it'll just go fucking,
Mm.
absolutely crackers. And you'll be the person who probably told Ed Sheeran he couldn't fucking sing. You know what I mean? There's always going to be someone, but surely, you want to be the next Jay Shetty, where he was a monk and he had to start doing loads of stuff, and people were like, "What are you doing, pal? Like, just fucking grow up." There's loads and loads of examples of people who've just gone, "Fuck off! I'm just going to do what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep doing it." And then they've made it. And again, it's easy to look at them people now going, "Ah, well, they must have had it well. I was lucky." But they're probably blood, sweat, and tears like everybody else.
Yeah, it's that thing of like it's funny how like people who work day in day out and stick the course are like the lucky ones.
Yeah, exactly,
Funny how
exactly. It's not. There is no substitute that for hard work. There is not a problem in the world apart from your health that not hard work can't get you out of.
that's true. Appreciate it, man. This has been a great chat. It's been an eye opener for me as well on a personal level. We'll definitely stay in touch. I'll email you, and let me get over there and have a look at what you guys are doing.
Awesome. Well, you are welcome anytime, mate. And thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to hear the sound of my own voice, I suppose.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
See you, man.